Welcome to the fourth episode of the Middle School AD podcast. I am your host, Thomas Frederickson. And today we sit down with Kevin Broene, a CAA from Grand Rapids Christian Schools in Michigan. Today we discuss athlete and parent experience, valuing officials, and program and coaching evaluation. I hope you're able to get better from the discussion today, but before we dive in, please hear a word from our sponsors.
This episode is sponsored by Gipper, the preferred sports graphics platform for ADs. Start creating professional-looking sports graphics today by starting a free trial. Middle School AD podcast listeners get 10% off any plan when you use code MSAD10 at Gipper.com. As an athletic administrator, you understand better than most how much support matters. Support for your coaches, support for your athletes, and support for your department are crucial to providing the best possible experience for every student. Snap Mobile is now your one-stop for all the tools you need to support your department. With our expanded suite of products, you can now raise money, open team stores, schedule and manage your facilities, and communicate with your athletes, parents, and stakeholders with the same level of care you've come to expect from Snap. Visit snapraise.com today to schedule a demo with your local Snap Mobile representative.
Hometown Ticketing makes it fast and easy to buy tickets on your school's website or in the new Hometown Fan app. It's simple. Just search for your school, buy your tickets, and they'll be right there in your account, ready to be scanned when you get to your event. Download the Hometown Fan app today.
This is Game Time. Neptune Game Time creates a high-energy game day atmosphere that your players and fans will love. Every song in our database is 100% lyric safe, which means you can stop screening music for good. Game Time also provides custom messaging to help you promote your upcoming events, concessions, and event-specific announcements. And it gives you the opportunity to sell sponsorships on your station that will generate revenue for your athletic department. Amp up your game day with Game Time.
Welcome to another episode of the Middle School AD podcast. Today we are speaking with Kevin G. Broene, who is a certified athletic administrator. Kevin is the middle school athletic director and the high school assistant athletic director at Grand Rapids Christian Schools in Michigan. He has been an AD for 11 years and was named a Regional AD of the Year in 2018. Kevin has also presented 2 sessions at this past year's MIAAA conference. Kevin, welcome to the podcast, and I'm glad you're here speaking with us today.
Hey, Thomas, thank you so much. It's always fun to get to talk about some athletics and, this time to talk with some middle school ADs. As you say, not a ton of love out there for the middle school ADs. So I'm excited to rep us and hopefully contribute to a quality conversation today.
Good deal. So mention a little bit about who you are and some of your accomplishments, but if you want to let the listeners know kind of your journey in athletic administration.
Yeah, I mean, it started for me way back 2005. I could earn a $3,000 stipend at Chicago Christian Schools to become a middle school athletic director. So I chose to do that. Got my feet wet a little bit, continued to teach, kind of put it down for a few years after, I did that about 3 years, put it down for a few years. And then when I moved back up to Grand Rapids, Michigan in 2012, became the assistant AD at about a 900 student Christian school on the west side of Grand Rapids, Michigan. And a couple years after that, became the middle school AD. I believe this is my 8th year as the middle school AD at Grand Rapids Christian. Have coached a ton of sports from 5th through 12th grade, varsity level basketball at one point, varsity level girls golf, and now I'm currently a varsity boys golf coach, in addition to being middle school athletic director and high school assistant AD. So a lot of fun things and a lot of challenging things during that time, but still here and still kicking. Couple years ago, started working with Baylor University as a teaching fellow for their Center for School Leadership. So there's an athletics portion to that, and get to contribute to the conversation over there and bring ADs together around important topics and ideas in a lot of different ways.
Good deal. That sounds like a good job. I mean, especially, I can working with basically all age groups, right? Going from middle school, high school, and even working with the college. Kind of get to see all the transition. So along the way, who's been your biggest mentor, and why in the world of athletic administration?
I was really fortunate to watch an athletic director learn a job at Chicago Christian when I was there for a few years. His name was Eric Brower. Really gifted administrator as far as program development, accountability, and program promotion, setting high standards for a program. Just kind of watched that from the background as I was coaching there. So a friend of mine, but also a mentor. One of my most impactful mentors is Eric Ellefson, who currently also now works at Baylor University, but was my principal for a few years and then has become a mentor of mine, who just helps me with leadership development and, helps me kind of build this business that I run called Grit Leadership for Educational Athletics. And it's been a huge impact on my athletic directing and educational career. But I would say the person in athletics who's had the greatest impact on me is Jason Hirama from Grand Rapids Christian Schools. When I started the job, I believe he was around 15-year veteran of being an athletic director, and he has shown me so much about the world of athletic administration, and he's pushed me into areas I didn't want to go, but he knew I needed to go to them. And I would say one of the most important things he does, besides model incredible behaviors, work ethic, care for students and families, besides being a great model, is that, he wants me to be more than just someone who works with him. I think some of the greatest leaders out there, they want you to not only lead in what you're doing, but lead beyond what you're doing, even if that means leaving that place. And he's always pushed me and encouraged me to spread my wings and to believe in myself to do a little bit more than what I think I can do. And so it's been great to have him in my life the last 10 years. This is the 11th year, I think, at Grand Rapids Christian. So just having him in my life, teaching me and modeling a lot of what he's done, just a very impactful mentor.
Good deal. It's always fun to hear where we've come from and who's kind of led us that way. But we're going to kind of jump real hard into it at the beginning and then kind of go from there. But kind of in your opinion, what do you think the biggest challenge that middle school ADs are facing today?
Well, it's hard for me to know what everyone else experiences, but what I could do would be to speak from my experiences and what I feel. I'm fortunate to have a pretty big lens pretty big scope because of the work that I do with Grit Leadership. I get to see a lot of different districts and hear a lot of people's stories. Kind of like you with this podcast, you get to hear a lot of different stories. But certainly, I believe one of the biggest challenges that we face is the dynamic of individualism and result-oriented focus of parents and sports society at a young age that then clashes with us when we attempt to do educational athletics at the middle school level. We get a variety of people that come from a lot of different places, but most of them are whatever way they can make their child most successful, most noticed, most trophy-oriented. And then all of a sudden you bring them into an educational athletics situation, which, as you and I know, Thomas, is not about the individual as much as it is about lowering yourself so that we can be much bigger. And that is a very big clash when parents come into that, students come into that. And certainly there's just a feeling that society, sport culture, this result-oriented situation, we've created a lot of anxiety, depression, fear, in these kids. Those numbers are off the charts, as you know, worse than they've ever been in our country's recorded history. And parents, well-meaning, loving parents who are trying to do a good job are doing that. They're pushing towards those results to be able to have their kids be noticed and advanced. But then nobody wants to deal with the fallout of that, which is all of the depression, fear, anxiety, and all that stuff. And so we have this weird societal situation around youth sports and youth athletics that I think most of us can relate to, this odd feeling of what it's like, clashing with our ideal desire to build teams and build character and have tough lessons occur and have difficulties happen that we can then help kids through and make them reflect and see if they could do things differently for others. And all of these things that make educational athletics rich, that clashes so much with, I need to advance my child in whatever way possible. And so that those two things clashing, I think, causes a variety of problems in educational athletics. But I think that's something that at least the schools that I know and the school that I lead, we see that coming through in our competitions and in our youth athletics at the middle school level.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, it's not just there. Again, speaking with people from all over the nation, that's kind of been the one that gets brought up. I mean, there's other things that get brought up as well with money and funding and things like that. But the one that always keeps getting brought up is how do we, work with the outside organizations, the AAUs, the clubs, because in middle school, I know here in South Carolina, the middle school age, they're still doing both. Once they get to high school, they most of the time, some of them start focusing more on the high school because there's not as much out there for, the different teams and different things like that. But so yeah, it's not just there, it's everywhere. But kind of in your opinion, what are y'all doing, or how do you think we kind of help that marriage between the outside organizations and the school-based ones?
Yeah, I mean, I think that what I think is really important is to speak with my parents and train my coaches as much as I possibly can. We all know there's a lot of turnover in middle school coaching. But if we want to have a place, I mean, the thing that I preach most often to my families is I want Grand Rapids Christian to feel so different from every other youth sports experience. When people come to our gym, it should feel different because of the way that we speak or don't speak, the way that we cheer or don't cheer about certain things. Referees should feel a different feeling. They should want to come to our gym, right? Like if we're doing the opposite of what everyone else is, we're doing the right thing, because society's youth sport culture is broken. It is 100% broken. And so that's the thing that I talk to my parents about. And so what are some of those behaviors? It's how we work with coaches. It's how we sit in the stands. It's reminding them what it means to be a fan. It's reminding them how to work with coach in a positive way. Reminding them that their child actually may not be the one that's the most truth-telling person in the equation. That my 5-year-old girls can manipulate me when I walk in the door on what had happened in a certain situation. And if I'm dumb enough to believe them, I'm going to get myself into a weird spot. And I would just submit to parents that, hey, your 12-year-old, your 13-year-old has had 7 more years to practice that skill on how to twist the truth slightly to get you on their side. And we just got to remember that there is trained, hired people that chose to coach. They chose to be here for the benefit of children that are on the other side of this equation. And we believe 12-year-olds before we believe adults. And some point in my life, when I was a middle school athlete to now being a middle school AD, that flipped, because my parents never believed one word I said when I came home. It was always about the coach and the teacher and in the school, but it's 100% flip now. And you know that, you feel it, because as soon as a kid comes home and says this, it's the 100% truth. And now we got a problem. And just teaching people how to handle that feeling well. So we do a lot of coach training and a lot of parent conversation. Monday I have the competitive cheer meeting and the basketball meeting with all of the parents. And then after that, I have my 1-hour training with all of my coaches to train them on our culture and how we operate. And Here's how we hit the mark. And I just think, Thomas, that the more I talk to people, at least in our league, not a lot of people doing those things. It's kind of like, hey, I got a coach. You know how to coach. Let's go coach. And we figure it out. And that culture gets missed. Those conversations get missed when we have such a big impact. Those leaders, as you and I were talking about before, have such an opportunity to make a difference for kids and parents in teaching them what youth sport culture can be. So I think that's a big thing that we're doing. And I think it makes a big difference. When we're able to have those conversations, name some of those challenging things and kind of say, hey, this is how we want to handle those challenging situations ahead of time, and then training your coaches in how to do that stuff. So I think that's a big key to helping that pain point of culture. And ADs, I'm not better than anybody else, but I'll tell you what, we all feel the little fires that are there, and you're going to get less of them if you do this. You're still going to have them because you can't fix crazy, but you're still going to have them, but you're going to have way less of them. And then you could do a much better job with the ones that you have if you're able to get ahead of it and train and teach the best that you can with people.
Yeah, so I'm gonna dive in a little more what you said about your hour that you spend with your coaches, kind of going over y'all's beliefs and y'all's culture and all of that after you meet with the parents. Can you kind of dive, because I think a lot of ADs would be, even at the high school level, may want to hear kind of what you do and how you present that to your coaches. But again, like you said, especially at the middle school where there are such a high turnover, you may have a good bit of coaches that have never heard this before or have never seen something like this before at another school. So can you kind of dive more into what that coaches AD meeting kind of looks like?
For sure. Without extreme specifics, I think the first thing that we always talk about is that our goal in middle school athletics, and I do this with parents and kids, is to provide an opportunity for kids to enjoy the sport more at the end of the year than they did at the beginning. Like, that is a very important thing. This is an exploration time, right? So that's a goal. Another goal is that their kid gets opportunities to learn, to fail, to have difficulty, to come home frustrated, to come home angry, to come home happy, to come home, excited, to play a lot, to play a little. Like, I want this to be a full experience. I always tell parents, coaches, that people think a good experience is something that they get what they want, when they wanted it, how they wanted it, and that's what made it fun. And I think that that's true, but it's not fully true. Good experiences are also the opportunity to shape ourselves in those ways that aren't as pleasant. It's kind of this foundation of grit leadership that I talk about, is that we as the leaders, we have to make sure that people understand that all of that makes a good experience. That if their kid isn't coming home frustrated because things were challenging in practice, or they're not coming home because, hey, I didn't get to play as much as I wanted, and what do I got to do about that? And so I want that full experience. The next thing we talk about is the idea of what are middle school kids looking for. There's a national report that comes out every year, but year after year, it's very similar to this. Winning is 8 out of 10 of reasons that kids play middle school athletics, right? Joining the team because Jimmy's on the team and maybe I can be friends with Jimmy is like much higher on the list than winning. And number one overall is because they want to have fun. And so don't bring your ego as a coach. Don't bring your win at all costs mentality. We need to be wise that this is the start of athletics, not the end all be all of athletics. And so we just kind of center ourselves around wherever you come from. Remember where kids are at. They want to have fun. They want to be with their friends. They want to enjoy the game. And winning, although the coach really wants to win, and maybe 2 or 3 kids on your team are diehard crazy for winning, the majority of kids, remember, this is the beginning. This is not the end. This is the beginning of the journey. And then we talk a lot about just what do we need to do to be on par with the culture, right? So we talk about a standard for communication with parents. So we have a weekly email. I send them a sheet that says, here's how you do weekly emails. You talk about this, you talk about this, you give the schedule, and then you talk about this. And the reason I do that is because I want our parents to get the same information 5th through 12th grade. So we started this in our high school first. I brought it to the middle school with me. So in 5th through 12th grade, We're getting we're teaching our culture that every Saturday you're going to get an email from a coach that tells you, hey, this was what we did last week. This is what's coming up this week that we're going to be working on. Here's the schedule. And then here's a couple fun things that I noticed or whatever that I'm excited to do the next week. So we're fully engaging people in a communication system, 5th through 12th grade. We talk about, all of the ways that we're going to handle challenges. So if there's an issue with the league, right, like something happens in a game, you're not going to go after the AD at that school. You're not going to go to the officials about it. You're not going to complain and get mad at the table. You're going to teach kids that when there's an issue, you handle it professionally. So that means you finish it out. You don't make excuses. You do the things you're supposed to do. You let me know, and then I'll approach it with the league. And I teach the parents the same thing. First year I was there, before I knew anything, we had parents go into a locker room of an opposing team and tell them that they didn't appreciate the way that school was playing basketball. And that is so far out of bounds that I started teaching about this on a season by season basis, that there is no place for that anywhere. And if you do that, you will not be allowed to participate in supporting your child at games. So teaching them the yeses and nos, whatever those yeses and nos are. And then coaches, especially about how we handle officials. Like, what do we expect? We have an official shortage in America. So who do you think we get at the middle school level? The best officials? Right? Even the best officials, we argue with them and don't like what they say, even, because it's not for us. Officiating is totally one-sided. If it's for the other team, then we think it's terrible. How many times do we actually talk to an official when they make a call for us that shouldn't happen, and say, hey, no, turn that around. Can you please turn that around? We never do that. We only get mad the other way. So I just tell them, coaches, if you have a problem with an official and you're going to yell at officials, then you cannot coach for us. It's just not part of the equation, because this is middle school. These kids have 8,000 things to work on, and one of them isn't how to approach an official. I always tell them, I sub-coach for you. And when I'm coaching, there's so many things on the floor and on the bench that I need to be talking about with these kids that they don't understand, that the official is literally the last thing on my mind. That if we're focused on the official, we are letting these kids and parents down. Right. So, talking about officials, and obviously we talk, like most people, here's how we handle transportation. Here's how we handle uniforms. Here's your expectations for what you have to start and end the season with. This is when you get paid. There's a whole sheet. I'm happy to share it with you. If you have a resource center, Thomas, we can let people use it, but takes me about an hour to go through it all and cover it. How we do our scheduling. All the stuff. We just want to get everybody on the same page season after season, and the parents get a similar thing, except we focus a lot more on how do they work with coach well, because we all know that's a problem. The way they handle themselves at games and the way that they work with coach are the two biggest parent issues that we have. Their behavior at games and the way that they behave towards coaches. And so those are things that we talk a lot about, how to do that well in our parent meetings.
Yeah, that's good stuff. We'll definitely have to get that form and put it up on the website. And like I said, at the end of this discussion, we'll let you kind of put out your email and different ways that people can get in contact with you. Because again, after hearing that, like we talked about, if they're wanting to get better, if they're wanting their program to get better, I think people are going to be hitting you up. I mean, I may even be hitting you up and seeing about what that hour looks like.
I post the videos on YouTube, and I send them out to everybody afterwards. So anybody who didn't make it, I send it in an email right to them. Those are public. I can send you one, Thomas, and see, you can check it out and see what you think of it. But I mean, I don't want it to be a secret. I want people to know, here's how we do better and feel different than youth sport culture. And I think largely we do a pretty good job of that, with this, the exception here and there. But yeah, thank you for giving me an opportunity to say that. It's something that I think is super important. If we're all setting that culture and expectation with everyone in our community, it's not just schedules and showing up to games and putting a coach in a slot. We can do better. We can do more for the good of a movement, right? For the good of making a difference for kids and communities and for officials and for everyone. We can do that. And I believe that's our responsibility as the athletic director. It's not just checking those basic boxes.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm big on the the athletic experience. Like I said, this is the 4th episode, and I think every episode we've talked about the experience. Episode 3 with the guys from Houston, we really dove in to the experience there. And like you said, is when they come to our facility, we want to be different than the others. Like I said, not saying that we're better, but just saying that we're different. We're doing things the right way, and we're making a great experience. My big push this past year was we were blessed enough, our high school that we feed into got a new scores table. So they had an old 12-foot scores table that they didn't need anymore, so they generously donated it to us. And, well, we pretty much gutted the thing and put TVs in it. And so, at the middle school level, we're running with a digital scores table. And I don't know many middle schools out there that have a digital scores table. But, again, it's one of those that, didn't cost a lot of money because we just went out and got a couple resources and got some donations and things like that. But, when this past volleyball season, when a girl would go back to serve, her pitcher would come up and there'd be some smoke behind it or whatever. And if she aced, the ball would come around and it would say ace. And, it was a great experience. The parents loved it. They loved seeing their kids on the screen, and, the kids obviously loved it. And like I said, yes, we want to play to win, because to me, if we don't play to win, then we're disrespecting the game. But winning's not everything. Like I said, I've coached an undefeated team and I've coached a defeated team, and and sometimes the defeated teams have the most fun because, like I said, you're out there to have a good time. So yeah, that's good stuff, and like I said, we'll definitely get that information up there. And we kind of talked about officials a little bit. We're the same here in South Carolina. It's probably everywhere. Is that the shortage of officials is pretty bad. And I know here in South Carolina at the middle school level, if there is a shortage for whatever reason that night, then the middle schools may not have an official. They may pull that official and put them at a JV game or a varsity game. But so you'll have 2 teams that show up, but there's no official. And so, kind of how, with you kind of bringing that up, how do we handle that? I mean, what is there anything that y'all do in Michigan there, or anything that you've seen that kind of helps with the shortage of officials?
Well, I mean, no, we don't have more officials because we've done anything special. I think it's a slow fix. If we're honest, it's been a slow decline, right? And COVID accelerated it. But the decline is in the shape of parents in the stands and coaches on the sideline. It's not the kids on the courts or the fields. They're not the ones that are like, oh, I can't do this. And refs are saying, I can't do this anymore. It's the adults, and that's why with Grit Leadership, I am 100% focused on helping adults do better at what they're doing, because we've led kids into this scenario. We've led society into this because we're the adults and we're the ones that are shaping everything, but we can also lead people out of it. And so one of the most important things that we're trying to do, our athletic administrator, secretary, she put together last year, she asked every single official that came to our school the entire year, why do you officiate? And put together, this compilation of their answers. And it was amazing. They all want to love kids. They want to care for kids. They want to give back to the game. Like hundreds of officials saying the same thing. And I think it's important for parents and coaches to see that, because they do it for kids and they do it for the love. And then how do we treat them? Parents are treating them in such a way that official is in the way of my kid's ability to get a scholarship, even though that kid's in 7th grade. Right? These parents grow up going to 4th, 5th, 6th grade club tournaments, and the behavior at those tournaments is off. I mean, it's just, I'm not even surprised anymore of fights and yelling and all the stuff that goes on. And then they bring that into school. So I think ADs out there, you have to understand that there's a shortage for officials, but that's our responsibility, to talk to our communities about that. To talk to them. and to get officials to want to be at our schools. If officials want to be at our schools, then there will be more officials, coaches. We do this crazy thing where it's do as I say, not as I do. And we tell the kids, you can't complain to the official. And that's my job to yell at officials. So the kids grow up learning that the adults are supposed to yell at officials as a good thing. And that's not a good thing. Like that's not the way it's supposed to be. The officials are there to make sure that we can play a basketball game or to play a football game or soccer or whatever it may be. And without them, we can't do it. We had games canceled last year in Michigan because there was not enough lacrosse officials. And it is our responsibility. And I want that to be really clear. Like the more we can communicate to our parents about how to love them and care for those officials, we specifically say in all our meetings, that if you are going to yell at the official from the stands as an untrained person that isn't on the court or on the field, that better than they do from your third party perspective, I will come to you with an application because you're obviously qualified enough to put stripes on and help us out. And I kind of say that in jest, but at the same time, like they know that I will do that because, like that, I'm serious. We need people. And if you're that good, then you should join us and help, put it on. But if you're not, then just be quiet. Those officials should feel loved and cared for, not afraid to walk out after the game. They should not be afraid. They should feel loved. When you see the official, even if they were the worst official ever, just say to them, hey, thank you for officiating this game. We're so glad our son, our daughter got to play today. You don't even have to comment on what they did. That's just going to encourage them to come back and try again. I mean, middle school, we know that we got kids participating in middle school athletics that are just trying to figure out if they belong, right? Just figure out if they love this or not. And when we make it about winning or results, we screw that up for them. And it's the same thing with officials. We got 22-year-old people that want to give back to a game that don't know the first thing about it, and they get to officiate in the middle school. And they're trying to learn. And there's a assigner that's trying to teach them how to do it. And they're going to screw it up just like our kids screw it up. And we want that coach to be a lover and someone who cares for that kid in those tough situations, just like we need parents and coaches to care for those officials, because without them, we don't have games. And so I just feel really passionately when you ask, like, what do I think is going on? I think this is such a big thing that we need to make sure that we love and care for the job that they do. There is nowhere else in the world that someone can pay $5, $3, $1 or whatever, and then say like the excuse of, well, I bought my ticket, I can say what I want. How many times have we heard that? Where else does that occur? It doesn't happen to me in my job, and it doesn't happen to them in their job. But for some reason, we do that to officials who are trying to do their job and give back to the game. So, I just feel like we have a duty to instruct our parents and put perspective on officiating. And I just plead with our parents that our place be a place people want the game. They want to go to Grand Rapids Christian for the game. And when they're done, whether they were the worst official, blew the call at the end, that our coaches and our parents say, hey, thank you for doing this today because we got to play. I'm so thankful that you did that. So yeah, I mean, that's what we're trying to do in our little corner of the world. And I think if we can get more people to do that, it's just going to secure the game for our kids. We know the importance of athletics and we need officials. And it really starts with our parents and our coaches. And I think our coaches are fully aware that I don't care if they're 8-0. If they're having a problem with an official, I will ask them to leave. They will not coach anymore. It is just not the important part of the game. The important part is loving and caring for kids and teaching them how to do a better job. And so they're going to be not fulfilling their job description if they're thinking that part of their job is to lobby with officials and yell at them and try to get calls their way. That's just not part of it. So,
yeah, that's good stuff. I try to emphasize as well, kind of like that towards the parents, is this isn't their full-time job. They are, I mean, even at the college or professional level, that's not their full-time job. And so you don't know what these men or women have come from. They may have come from a great day at work, or came from one of the worst days at work that they've had all year. And, they're having to come and ignore everything that happened that day, to perform, and to, like you said, to give back and to help the kids. And then, things can get heated if they're already a little upset and you're yelling at them. And again, they're humans too. And like you said, especially at the middle school level, they're learning. And so sometimes they may make a bad call, but if you give them the good gestures and you respect them and all that, I found that a lot of times they'll come to you after the game like, look, coach, I missed that one, but thank you for not biting my head off about it. After the fact, I knew I missed it, but I couldn't change the call right then and there. And but that's the biggest thing. Like you said, I tried to emphasize to our parents is just they're humans too, and this isn't their full time job. This is just a hobby that they want to do for the sport.
Yeah, and I know we're gonna talk a little bit more about some of this leadership stuff that I'm passionate about, but when I go to rec games in our school, we have K-4 rec sports, and some of our players officiate that for the little kids, and they're not good at officiating. They don't even blow the whistle hard. They have no training, and you know what parents do? They don't care, because what's youth K-4 about? It's about having fun. Well, I would submit to every parent and every person that's what it's always about. The reason we get the way we get is because we are so focused on a selfish winning agenda that, again, we play to win, but that's not all it is, right? It's still supposed to be fun. And if you don't win, it shouldn't be spoiled. You shouldn't ruin people's nights. You shouldn't, belittle people because you didn't win the game. We just get too focused on those results. And that's really where the nastiness comes from, is the outcome of an 8th grade B team basketball game. The outcome of the freshman game between two 500 teams or two undefeated teams. It's freshmen. Like, what are we doing? So just the perspective that sport is not the end all, right? Sport is actually the vehicle at which we should learn a lot of things that are going to help us be great at something someday, because most of us aren't going to work as professional athletes. Actually, 99.9% of us aren't. So this is actually the beginning, not the end that we need to sacrifice everything for. And so, yeah, I agree with you. And I hope people can take it seriously as ADs to educate and try to frame some of this for their people, just to help with officiating and help us have games. So.
Yeah, so you've brought it up a good bit. So we'll dive into it. Pretty much, what is grit leadership that you've kind of created there in that system?
It started in 2018 because I was going to quit being an athletic director. I was ready to be done. I was sick of parents. I was sick of trying to find middle school kids, middle coaches for middle school kids and doing bus transportations and all the stuff. And I went to a conference, and the last thing of the conference was about college readiness. And it talked about how all of these kids going to Stanford University. There's a piece of research where Stanford did a study about why they couldn't keep kids in their school. And they get the best and the brightest, right? The most, as I say, the most acronym proficient kids, ACT, SAT, GPA. My whole life, I thought I was doing the right thing if I helped a kid get a scholarship for basketball or sport as a coach, and as a teacher, if I helped them get A's so they could go to the college they wanted to. And what the study told me is the most acronym proficient kids that I was trying to make were going to Stanford, the place they needed to go, right? The place that we all hope our kids go. And 46% of them were making it through their freshman year before dropping out. That anxiety, fear, depression were all just off the charts. And it was like, wait a minute, what are we doing? And so I started to look into it to figure out, how come I'm a well-meaning, loving person that cares about people and cares about kids, and I'm not making the impact that I thought I was. And I would just submit that the majority of us in education are in that boat. We're well-meaning, loving, caring people who are going about leading the best way that we can. But as I did the research, I learned I was accidentally doing some things wrong with a well-meaning, loving, caring attitude that was having a drastic impact. And so I began to study that and came up with a theory of leadership that I call grit leadership, which the company is built to help leaders build a gritty, more resilient generation of people, whether that's the generation that we're in as a leader or the one that we're leading. But having the tools and the resources to be able to do that. So I began to kind of talk to schools about that, talk to people about it, and eventually developed a coach evaluation software system that's very simple. I'm an AD. I hated the way evaluations went. for me as a coach, because some AD was always telling me what I was and wasn't good at, and that AD was never around. They weren't even in the locker room. They weren't even in the practices, and I always hated that. And then I became an AD, and I started doing the same thing. And I thought to myself, I'm not there. Why am I doing this? It's just the way it was done. And so I built a different way to do that, a way that kind of held true to the things I was talking about with grit leadership, that theory of leadership that would build gritty, more resilient kids, and built an evaluation to kind of hold that accountable, where we asked the kids about things. We had coaches self-reflect, and we had parents communicate about the culture that was being disseminated to them through athletics, and what those leaders were doing to help or hurt that culture. And so it just flipped the idea of, now as the AD, I actually do what I should do, which is sit with a coach, partner with him about how we can better lead to impact students. And so the software kind of took off, and it's kind of going all over the place now. And anybody who's listening to this, if you want a free trial of it, I'd love to give it to you and let you do it. It's something that I think all ADs should be evaluating their leaders, because as we know, the classroom of athletics is one that kids pay the closest attention to and parents pay the closest attention to. And so those leaders that have the opportunity to make an impact have to know how to lead the right way. And like I said, in these little ways that well-meaning, loving people are accidentally making some mistakes, we can help them see that and correct that and become better, so that there's a different outcome for kids and better leadership for our families and our culture. And so that's kind of how this started. And yeah, I'm in my 6th year now of doing this. And yeah, I think I'm getting a little better every single year at how to talk about it and how to get this out to people that want to make a difference in their community.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Like I said, we talked about before we started recording today about the importance of the AD evaluation and coaches evaluation and things like that. Like I said, teachers get evaluated with their evaluation systems, and like I said, I think it's a good thing that we have you've created a coaches one kind of in place. Like I said, we normally kind of do this at the end, but while we're talking about it, if you want to go ahead and kind of give your information out there on how people can reach you, we'll also kind of put it in the show notes and tag you on Twitter so they can get you there. But if there's any way that is the best way for them to contact you, if you want to let them know.
Yeah, the website that kind of talks about what it is, and then you can just fill out the form, and then I get in touch with you to build you your own little dashboard to do this. It's just personalized to your school, and I do webinars to help teach how to use it. But www.gritleadership and then EA.com. And that stands for Grit Leadership Educational Athletics.com. So www.gritleadershipea.com. And there's a lot of information on there. And like I said, I will build anybody can have this tool and get better right now. The data is going to help you instantly in your school. Some of the ADs would say it's one of the biggest problem preventers they have. I talked about these fires that are going on, these little 20, 30 fires of just stuff happening. You're going to greatly reduce that, so that the ones you do have, you can work on much more intentionally and do a much better job with them if you're able to see the problems before they start. So yeah, that's the best way to get in touch. And again, we have more than 40 paying schools. I do it very part-time as far as like my promotion of it. But I haven't had one school stop using it once they started, which I think says something about it. And I want people to use it because it makes a difference for me. It's given me new life as an AD because I feel like I'm doing something bigger than myself. I'm helping leaders enjoy what they do. And then number two, those leaders are then able to impact hundreds, if not thousands of people over time with that information and their ability to lead more effectively. Each year they do it, they get a little better and make a better difference for kids in this way. So.
Good deal. So kind of as we wrap up, if you had to pick one, I know there's a ton that we've kind of gone over, but if you had to pick one personality trait or strength of a middle school AD that you think is the most important, what would that be?
That's a good question, and picking one is really tough. Maybe I reframe maybe I'll reframe the question a little bit, which is I think it's super important for ADs to understand this at the middle school level. You have a super important job, like a really important job. You are gathering people, kids, families from a vast experience and channeling them into educational athletics, which is fundamentally different than anything they've experienced up to that point. Um, and so I would just say, number one, the understanding of the importance of your role. You're not just a middle school AD. Like you are a middle school AD, one of the most important jobs. Like we talk all the time in our district that the better we do in 5th through 8th grade, the better our high school program runs, right? The parent community, everything. And like we see it as one of the most important jobs in our district because we get the chance to work with people for 4 years, before they get to the big stage, should it be as high school. So I just want to reiterate to people, you have a super important job, and the leadership of those leaders is huge. Like your ability to communicate with parents and those leaders. So maybe you want to talk about a trait, communication, and just the ability to hold people accountable to the way that they're going to set their culture, is one of the biggest things that we can do for our school system, for people, to speak truth to them about how to do it right, and do it in a way that makes a positive difference for kids, not just the way that we had it done to us or the way that society tells us to do it, but really in the right way. So I know that's not a character trait necessarily, Thomas, but I just want people to know, like, it's our job is you're not just a middle school AD. You are like in a very important role. And I didn't see it that way when I started, but I see it that way now. That is one of the most vital roles in our district. So
No, that's good stuff. Because like I said, a lot of times, and I know here, but it may be all across, but a lot of time at the middle school, it's just maybe it's a middle school coach that they may be coming in for the first time coaching school-based basketball or soccer or whatever, and they need somebody to help lead the program, and they're like, well, you coach, so you be the AD as well. And like I said, a lot of times it's not looked upon as a big role, like the high school. It's the high school ADs don't have to teach, they don't have to do things like that. Where at the middle school we're still having having to teach and like I said, coach 3 or 4 sports and be there. But like I said, I think if people brought in the importance of you are basically introducing school-based athletics, and everyone always says you only have first chance to make a first impression. So if your school and your program at the middle school level doesn't make a good first impression, then that may hurt that an individual, that family, or whatever later on down the line, or that, like you said, that may hurt that community high school. And now that those families, that individuals trying to find another school to go to, and again, that's a whole nother issue is the quote unquote unofficial high school transfer portal. And so I appreciate you saying that. And again, I've always valued the middle school AD position, even when I was at the high school. And that's good stuff. Like I said, I hope people hold on to that and kind of look at it when they're moving forward. And just because your title is middle school AD doesn't mean that you're not as important as the high school AD or the high school coaches or whatever. So no, that's good stuff. And like I said, I think that's why we're trying to, even the NIAAA is trying to do a little more with the middle school level, and we definitely are here with the SC AAA in South Carolina, and just trying to build those up, because like you said, it's tough, especially at the middle school level when there's not a lot of support across the board. It's like you said, a lot of them get out quick. They get out, and after 3 or 4 years, they're like, "This isn't for me." But if they really buy in and understand their importance in that role, I think it's a very good, rewarding job.
It is, and it stinks because it also stinks because you can work that hard, like as hard as I work at doing this, and I have a company that helps, my company that helps me do it. I'm doing it a certain way, and people still make mistakes with it, and it's frustrating. And there's days that I'm like, why do I even work this hard? But I think when I sit down at night and I remember the reason I work this hard is because they have this many years ahead of them as a parent, as a kid, that we got to do our best right now to give them the best shot at those years, making it count for them in a positive way. And I'm not talking about a scholarship. I'm talking about sports being a positive influence on their life. And we can discourage them now, or we can really help them right now. And this is their first experience with educational athletics, and we have such an opportunity to do it. And I know we didn't get into this, Thomas, but having an unlimited amount of teams for kids to participate is a huge thing. Budgetary makes that not possible in a lot of schools, but giving kids an opportunity to participate in this sort of program. Any way you can do that: A teams, B teams, C teams, D teams, partner with your rec department, in the city, whatever it is, to get some funding. But just keeping kids involved at an early age is so important. So,
yeah, we have our school team, if you want to call, the one that everyone sees that goes to other schools and plays. But we also do intramurals for those kids that maybe didn't quite make the team, or if they really don't want it, they just want to play. And here in South Carolina, 6th grade cannot participate in those school-based teams. So a lot of the intramurals is for them, is getting them involved, and sometimes it's trying out a new sport. And you may have we're just now sanctioned boys volleyball here in South Carolina, and so it's getting having an intramurals volleyball and getting some boys out there, and they may fall in love with it, and they're like, hey, well, next time the school team comes around, I'm gonna go and try out for it, and that it may be a new passion. So that's what we do is like you said, trying to get as many kids involved in some form or fashion throughout the school year.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. So good.
All right. Well, we appreciate it. Again, we've been sitting down with Kevin Broene from the Grand Rapids Christian Schools in Michigan. Kevin, again, I appreciate our discussion. I think if people really hone in, they've learned a lot today from this discussion. And again, we look forward to seeing what your school's doing there and what Grit Leadership does in the future.
Hey, thanks a lot. Like I said, I mean, there is zero obligation to keep using what I provide you, but I don't know of a tool that does what it does as simply as it does it, and gives you the possibility at impact as great as what it can do. And I want people to have it. I'm just asking people to contact me so you can get it. Like, let it help you. It's made by an AD for AD. So just get a hold of it and check it out the website if you want, or email me. I'm going to give Thomas some of that info about our parent meetings and coach meetings that he can post on the website. But any way that I can positively impact another AD or have a conversation, especially at the middle school level, is something that I 100% want to do. So please contact me if you'd like about any of this stuff. So.
Yeah, like I said, we'll make sure that we get your contact information and put that on the website and the show notes on social media. So again, thanks everybody for listening, and we'll see you next time. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Middle School Athletic Director Podcast. If you like what you heard and want to hear more, please subscribe on the platform that you are listening or viewing from, and give us a rating and a review to help us know how we are doing. Again, thank you, and see you next time.
This episode was sponsored by Gipper. Use the code MSAD10 for 10% off any Gipper plan at Gipper.com.